Blog Talk Radio.
ENlightenment Evolution Network presents the Enlightenment Evolution Hour with your host, Rob Goff here. Hey everybody, this is the Enlightenment Evolution Hour with your host, Rob Goff here. And today we have a very, very special show. We have a guest with us today. It's Philip Malika. He is the host of the brand new show to the Enlightenment Evolution Network that will actually be starting tomorrow. And this show is the Philip Malika Consciousness Evolution Hour. He's going to be here to talk with us just in a few minutes. We're going to chat a little bit about him, a little bit about the up-and-coming show, and a little bit about joining the network and everything that comes with that. We also have a very, very, very special clips from the original Master Density class, Advanced class. Now, this is the pay-per-view event that we've done in January, I believe towards the end of January, where Ardith and Trev came in and talked about very, very deep information about densities and dimensions. So we have all of that on tonight's show. But first, we start with our announcements like we do every week. Now, this week, I want to talk a little bit about the network. We have officially launched the Internet Radio Network, the Blog Talk Radio Network, and I now introduce the Enlightenment Evolution Network. This is a network for all things that are metaphysical. We have got the greatest team ever assembled in the history of history. We have a very great lineup. We have a very great setup. And actually, what we have this evening is, basically what we're going to be doing, we're going to be talking about everything metaphysical in this network. Monday, what we have at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, which has been running now for its second week this week, Daniel Scranton's hosting Heart to Heart Talk Radio with Daniel Scranton. Join Daniel as he has his featured guests and they discuss topics such as manifestation and all things metaphysical. They talk about the shift, extraterrestrial, global events, channeling, energy work, toning, sound healing, you name it, he's done it. Last 2 weeks, he's had a very good show. Last week, he had a wonderful guest. And Rachel, I can't pronounce her last name. She's a wonderful psychic intuitive. And the week before that, he had myself while I channeled Trev. So it's a great show. He's got a great on-air presence. And join him next week on Monday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. That's 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. Tuesday, the up-and-coming show with Carlos Ruiz hosting Galactic Families. As much as I can say about the show, the name says everything. He wants to help make the connection with our families in other galaxies and other solar systems. It's about the contact and connecting heart from heart with our galactic families. He also runs the Facebook group, or helps run the Facebook group, Yael Civilization, along with some other people from his website, Galactic Families. Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. And also Carlos will not be starting the show up for the next couple of weeks, but when we do, we'll have further announcements. Wednesday, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern, me, myself, and I, Rob Goff here, the creator of the Enlightenment Evolution Network, will host this show every Wednesday, the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. This is a trip that I take you through every Wednesday, with the first Wednesday of the month connecting to Trev and having Trev channel. When he channels, you can take all calls, all questions, anything that you want to ask him, he will. The third Wednesday, what I'm going to be doing is connecting with a special guest. Last week, I had Brad Johnson, and he channeled Adronis. It was a very, very great show, very in-depth information, a lot of great things that were there that he talked about. He shared a lot of new techniques, a lot of exciting stuff. So that's the third Wednesday of every month. The second and fourth will be just as it is tonight, a freestyle, open up, listening to clips, doing things like that. It'll be really, really exciting. So the next day, which is a Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's 6 o'clock Pacific Time, is Philip Malika. That's who we're having as the guest tonight. He's going to be hosting the Philip Malika's Consciousness Evolution Hour. I have an introduction for that, but what I'm going to do is let him talk about that tonight because it'll be much more powerful coming from him. Now, Friday night, still work in progress. In the next month and a half or so, we'll be having the Earth Experience with Kalina Angel. Kalina Angel will be hosting her own upcoming show called The Earth Experience on Friday night. Dates and details and times, all those things will be coming soon. The Earth Experience explores our soul's expansion through our human experiences on Earth. The first topic that's explored will be what we can do when the shift hits the fan, navigating and expanding through the excitement and exciting confusions that we have manifesting into our new 5D reality. So this is the lineup for our network. It's very, very great. It's going to be very exciting as the network's on. And I'm very excited. I know I've been posting tons of stuff on Facebook. It's a very exciting and great time. So thank you guys all for dealing with my craziness when I go through that. The Enlightenment Evolution Network is a network that's here to help raise the collective consciousness of all people. Anything that anyone wants to experience, we will have in shows lined up. Saturday and Sunday, we're going to be having new shows coming on. We're going through a process of looking through 5 or 6 people who are interested, and we'll get details with that later. This does come at a small cost to myself to maintain this network, as well as the time and effort that all of us put in. Each individual host will have a link on their own shows for donations for them. So if you're listening to one of the shows and you enjoy it very much, please feel free to go ahead and donate to those people who are spending their time. The same with this show and the network. If you're interested in donating to the network or myself, please go to Trev Channeling, and there's a donate button. You can go there and donate through there. Or if you have PayPal, you can jump on and go to trevchanneling@gmail.com and send your donations to that specific email address through PayPal. We are going to have a very exciting show tonight. As I said before, we have Philip Malika, our guest, who is on air with us now. And I'd like to introduce you. How are you doing, Philip?
I am well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Hello, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing great. And I'm very excited about this, and I know we've been working on this for over a month now, putting all this stuff together. I know that you've been getting a lot of traffic in your own Facebook group that you created that's really brought a lot of help to people. Can you talk a little bit about this group that you created? What was it, about a year ago?
I want to say it was about 2 years ago.
Okay.
About the time that I took over a local meetup group here, which was originally an Abraham group that had formed here. And when I started in on this in 2009, first thing that happened to me was I was seeing a psychologist at the time who gave me an Abraham CD. It was actually the intro CD. And, a psychologist gave it to me and said, hey, why don't you listen to this and see what you think? And, I listened to it once, and I was scratching my head, and I listened to, because I had no background in metaphysical before that, no background whatsoever. And then I listened to it a second time, and by the time I was done the second time listening to it, I was like, holy shit, man, there's something here. I mean, this is real. I can feel this. I can feel the truth in this. And I basically said at that time, I'm going to give this 30 days. And I'm gonna do this belief work for 30 days that this intro CD was asking me to do, and in 30 days I'll decide if things are better. Man, I'll tell you, it wasn't 1 week. I had a knot in my stomach, Rob, for 20 years. I had a knot in my stomach, and I thought it was just normal. I thought that's how everyone lived. Within 1 week of that knot went away.
Oh my God!
Within 2 weeks, I didn't have to wait the rest of the 30 days. I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for my whole life. So I can't begin to tell you how excited this Enlightenment Evolution Network, this is a culmination for me of everything I've been doing up to this point. And I, when you called and asked me, I was like, oh my God, this is just perfect. This is wonderful energy, and I love how this is moving forward. And I got to tell you a quick story about Daniel. I just love Daniel.
Oh, so do I. He's great, ain't he?
I just absolutely love him. But I'll tell you a quick story about him. I told you in 2009, this was like fall of 2009, I got this Abraham CD. Well, by January, Joanna and I decided that we wanted to go on an Abraham cruise, that we wanted to meet Abraham. And we booked it and went on a cruise that January. And who do you think was on that cruise, Rob?
Oh, Daniel Scranton.
Absolutely. We met him. We just automatically hit it off, that energetic thing. And we laughed and partied and we had fun. And there was a big group of us. I mean, we had 300 of us on this boat. And just 7 days of joy. And always kept up with Daniel after that. And then he started the channeling, and now to be in this Enlightenment Evolution Network, which shows it just absolutely blows me away. I'm just so excited about all this. It's so much fun.
Well, it's amazing too that you actually got that from a psychologist. That in itself is a beautiful thing. It shows the validity of how powerful the information that's shared from a metaphysical standpoint can truly be.
Yeah, and I'm a strong believer in that we're led to everything, and it was all perfect timing. Everything that's happened to me, Rob, throughout my life, no matter how it looked at the time, it's always been in its perfect timing. And that was it, and it's perfect timing. And, when it happened, I'm 49, and I go, oh, my God, I get this now. I'm 49 years old. What, are you kidding me? Is this like some kind of cruel joke? What am I supposed to do with this in, what's left of my life? And what I've come to realize is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter where you pick up, because it's all this beautiful orchestration that's done from the oversoul, that's done from this good intention for us. And so everything that's done such a wonderful flow to this. And, this is what I'm going to try to share with people on the show.
Well, it's an amazing story, too. The thought of the physical part of you that was so bogged down because of the, I imagine, would be negative energy, negative thought process, negative mindset, the things that we all usually come with default as human. Just to know that alleviated or was alleviated from the whole energetic system within 1 week, that shows you how strong your consciousness is in building your physical ailments and your physical recoveries.
Absolutely. And, with the meetup group, I always tell people, when I talk about the meetup groups, I have 2 local groups that meet here face-to-face. I'm near Detroit in Michigan like you are, and I took over this Abraham group, and we meet twice a month at this little hippie hangout in Clarkston called LA Cafe. And it's wonderful. We get between 10 and 20 people each meeting. And, I'll tell people, and we can go around the room, every single one of us who's in there, every single one of us came to this through some sort of major event in our lives. We came up against a wall, or we came up to this crossroads, and from that flowed this choice that made us look outside of ourselves, and forced us to look outside of our lives and to look try to look at a bigger picture. Because I think, when you live with the reasoning mind and you live with black and white for so long, after a while, you have to have a belief that there's something more to it. You can't, we didn't crawl out of a swamp as a collection of amino acids. We, that came together by accident. there was a design to this, and I use the word divinity sometimes, and I know that makes people uncomfortable because it's associated with religion and God. But when I say divinity, what I mean is intention. There is intention to everything, and consciousness is everything, and consciousness always has this good intention. And so it just leads us from wonderful experience to wonderful experience. Even if we don't think they're wonderful at the time, they're still leading us in a particular direction that's meant to serve us overall.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the one thing that I found, too, in my life. Everything that I just thought was the worst thing I could ever go through, when I look back, I see the blessing in it, because it brought me to a place of understanding, learning. It's hard because the no pain, no gain attitude of humanity really gives us that as our layout. And even that's a built-in belief system. So once we get past even that, then we can start learning lessons the much easier way.
Yeah, right. Especially if you grew up in Michigan, right, Rob?
Oh, Michigan, that's the other thing, too. You brought that up earlier. We are both fellow Michiganders, and most people, whenever I say Michiganders, they think that's a made-up word, but that's the official terminology for Michigan people.
Is it really?
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing. I've been here most of my life, since I was 4 years old. I grew up here. My dad was in the Army, so when I was 1 to 4 years old, or born to 4 years old, we were jumping all around the world. I've been to Germany, South Carolina, Indiana, all sorts of places, and then we landed here in Michigan. And as difficult as the state as it is with the winters, it does have a very, very beautiful energy about it, if you can get in that loop, but it also has a lot of negative energy if you get in. And it's just like any place you go, and a lot of people think this area has certain energy, this area. The energy you bring with you is what really kind of pumps that whole existence plot and theory out. Obviously, some places are easier to live than others energetically because of the way the earth energies are. But being in Michigan, how have you seen your Michigan experience?
Oh, I'll tell you, I was born in Detroit and grew up in the suburbs here. And, to me, the Detroit area, Michigan in general, but the Detroit area specifically, there is such a passion here. There is such passion for everything. And you mentioned that no pain, no gain, you have to work hard for everything. The people that settled this were hardworking, heartful people.
Sure.
And you can tell by the music that came out of here and by the people that come out of here. I really am a product of this, and that I am a very passionate person, and I love to express myself, and I love to, and sometimes I have rough edges like Detroit does. We don't play that shit here. You know what I mean? But but I temper that with love and compassion, and but it has served me very well, and it has served my development very well, and I think it's no accident that I landed here. I think it has honed certain aspects of me that have served me very well.
Absolutely, and that's, I think that energy of being here, it is a rough state to live in, the winter, all of the energy, but it brings survivors out, it does, and that adversity over climbing is something that does kind of stick with you in that spot too. So I never thought of it like that until you said it, but you put it beautifully. Thank you.
Yeah, and such creative energy, too. I mean, this is the place of creation. The auto industry, all of the manufacturing that was the hallmark of here, as well as all of the wonderful tourist opportunities. This is it's a place of great creative energy, and I really think that's even more so than the passion. The creative energy that exists here, I think, is probably what I would term the hallmark of this area.
Oh, absolutely. And it's amazing, too. A lot of people who are into the metaphysical community, a lot of people who really embrace the ideal comes from the West Coast. And I've met so many people from out there. But the more I get into it and the more popular this way of thinking comes, the more people I'm meeting from the Midwest and from the South. And the East and the bigger cities along the seaboard have always had their large communities or even small communities. I've heard in North Carolina, even a place as small as Asheville has a beautiful spiritual community for years and years. So.
Oh, yeah, Abraham does days there. When they tour, they do days in Asheville.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. And to see it here in Michigan, too, having you run that group, it's been a great inspiration. And after my life ends up getting a little less hectic on the day-to-day level here in the next few months, I've already told you that I'm coming down there.
Yeah.
Colleen herself, too, said she'd love to come down there and check that out.
We look forward to having you.
Yeah, it would be a beautiful thing. Now, this group that you got on Facebook, Consciousness Evolution 2.0 is the name of the group, correct?
Yes, that's it.
All right, and when you got that was was that kind of the name and reasoning behind the name of your show?
Yes, absolutely. Originally, I don't remember what I originally called that group, but I don't think it was Consciousness Evolution. It was going to be a sister group to the local meetup group here, a place where people, because we were meeting weekly or, bi-weekly or whatever in the local meetup group, and I wanted to have a place on Facebook where all these people who joined up to the local meetup group could come and get daily information. They could get, videos from YouTube that people posted, and they could get comments, and they could see what's going on, and I could stay in contact with them about the meetings and that type of thing. So originally it started off as that, and honest to God, Rob, it was a very small, intimate group up until about November, and then it just blew up. And we're at over 1,100 members now, just since November, 300 to 1,100 members. And
wow.
It's unbelievable. And what the great thing about it is people who are there. And, of course, that's what is the key to any group. And Daniel and you have both mentioned there's so much participation, heart-based participation of people who have come in and opened their hearts and they share. And people don't come there to argue, but people come there to explore. And there's so many aspects of this, as you know. And of course, my attitude with the group has always been, and I hopefully have reflected this throughout it, is that there is no one way. Of course, everybody is going to have their own unique way of going about this process that we're going through. And so the group really makes an allowance for all belief systems and all backgrounds. And, we try to give people the information that they're looking for. And people are just clamoring right now for this type of information because, let's face it, Rob, the mass consciousness knows what's going on. They know something big is happening. And a lot of them are, just starting to put their finger on it. And they're starting to look into these consciousness groups and some of the teachers and guides. They're starting to look into some of the other information that's available to them. And so I look at it as my job is to hold the energy for that perspective, hold the energy so that it's a beacon, and when people are looking for it, here we are. And the people that are coming in are just amazing. The people who have been there with me since the beginning and who have been contributing all this time, they're all like family. They're just like family to me, and I love them all so much. And I'm the most blessed person on the face of the earth to have to be in this type of a situation and with these wonderful people around me, such as yourself and all the other people in the group.
Well, that's the one thing I've noticed about the group is it has, honestly, for the size group, it has more activity and more useful, like you said, that heart-to-heart style of activity than groups that I've been in with 20, 50,000 people. So it's beautiful to see the information, and it's all one brand of information, too. It's the kind that accepts and that allows all types of possibilities, not the kind that restricts with dogma or restricts with aggression to what is not like. So it's a beautiful, beautiful group, and I really do. I've only really promoted a couple groups out there besides the ones that I run, or the like pages. Yours is one of them. The EIL Civilization that Carlos runs is another one. Both of those groups are really great, really positive, really insightful, and have a lot of people who share, as well as the admins who do the perfect job of allowing the energy to come through. And I like how you said that, holding the energy. That's a brilliant concept.
No, thank you. And let's face it, Rob, we're in the process of redefining our definitions. So, people come in and they talk of God, and people come in and they talk of, some of the spiritual teachers, and, we can accommodate all of that because the idea of God is changing, and the idea of so many of these definitions that we've used for years and years, and many of them are religious-based words that have this baggage that comes along with it. So we're also in the process of redefining all of this into our new knowledge, because the old answers just don't work for the new questions. And that's what is driving people to these groups and driving people to seek out this information. So it's very easy then if you can just allow that people have the basic idea, but they have to come from where they come from. So it's amazing when I look at the people that come through the group. We have all backgrounds, all ages, all religious backgrounds or not, all over the world, people are coming into this group. And when I look at them, it's amazing, because I'll go to their page, and I just do this to make sure they're not bots. I don't judge people and say, oh, okay, you're this group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I do go look at their page just to make sure they're not a bot. And when I look at their timeline, Rob, it's like, oh my God, they're saying all the same things we are. And people are listening to them, so I'm looking at people in North Dakota, and I'm looking at people in Iowa, and I'm looking at people in Texas, and I'm looking at people in Florida, and I'm looking at people in Peru, and I'm looking at people in Europe, and they're all saying the same things, and the people are listening to them. And we talk about that, and I go, we used to say 1/10 of 1%, it took 1/10 of 1% of the people of the mass consciousness to accept something in order for change to happen. And I'm saying, 1/10 of 1%, or we passed that ship sailed. That ship sailed, baby, because this is worldwide, and I don't care who you are, where you are. I think even if you don't talk about it, even if you don't share it, I think intuitively everybody knows that there's something going on. And, we talk about the public self and the private self. And I always say with people, I'm not concerned with what the public self does, because the public self does what they feel like they have to do. But I can feel in my heart so many people in their private self who have this inner knowing. You can see it in people's eyes, and you can feel it. You make the heart connections in the grocery store, and just the mail person, and it's amazing. It's amazing time to be here.
Oh, absolutely. It's the greatest thing ever. I'm always fortunate because of the work I do with channeling. People come to me who are of like mind, like thought, the people who have that inside of them, the people who have that just natural love inside of them, and the natural caring and wanting to learn more and to be more and to connect more. So it's just a complete advantage, but not everybody has that. So places like this group on Facebook, places like the YouTube channel that you do, all those places people can come and they can either learn or share.
The local meetup group, that's how we found it. We were like, I wonder, we came across, we were so green under the collar, when we first came into this stuff, and we said, gee, I wonder if there's an Abraham group around with people who think like this that we could actually talk to, because at that point, it was like being in a vacuum, it's like, oh, God, who do I talk to about this? They're all going to think I'm crazy. And we looked, and there was one like 5 miles away, a meetup group for Abraham. We were like, oh, my God, how perfect is that?
Oh, my God, that is brilliant. How convenient, huh?
Oh, yeah, and so, I always encourage people in their own communities it's so easy to start up the meetup group, and there are people who want to be involved and want to meet with like-minded people. They want to have these discussions. And I got to tell you, Rob, when I sit down in there with tables of people and we all open up our hearts and we start going, we create such a vortex of energy in this place that it's just, people just leave there. I mean, I can't even go to sleep, for a few hours. The energy is so strong. And once you've experienced that, you'll be hooked. I mean, so many of our listeners, I'm sure, are maybe very isolated in some ways. And so I do encourage people to look. If you don't want to start your own, go out and look, because there's metaphysical groups forming in every town. And Meetup is a perfect vehicle for that. And so I highly recommend it. And the actual meeting of people physically and bringing that energy together, bringing your energies into the same physical place, you just light up. You light up like a beacon, and you attract energy from all over the universe. And it's an amazing time. It really is.
Well, it's a pretty great idea. When you talked about that before, sharing the concept of starting your own meetup group, it's something that I was very, very interested in because Kalamazoo is a very small place. The closest large city is Grand Rapids, and that's about an hour and a half away. So I figured, I don't think I can start one. And that whole, Negative Nancy thing slipped in my head a couple of years ago when I heard you mention, to promote starting groups up. Sure. But I'm telling you that the more I lighten up, the more I loosen up, the more I align with myself, the more that thought keeps coming to me. Kalina and myself have talked about starting a local group in the area, too, for that. And I think now is the best time. There's no time that's better than now. And to have the capability of being face-to-face with all those, people out in California, there's a metaphysical spot or the light temples, all these places open to the public where people can. But out east, Midwest, starting your own is the perfect vehicle to be able to connect heart to heart. And like I said, I'm lucky. I do have that chance, but not everybody around does. So any information that I could share, any experience that I could share, I would be so grateful to teach and to learn, because we all do both of those when we interact and open our hearts up.
You bet we do.
Absolutely. I've got a question now about your show. I would really like for you to talk to people and kind of let everyone know what is your plan for this show. Obviously, you have a very, very motivated concept that you want to bring that love and connection from that Facebook group and the work that you've been doing to a wider group, to a format such as the Blog Talk Radio, where you can open up the lines and have many people talk and discuss. So what exactly are you going to bring to this Blog Talk Radio network for people?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm like a full balloon that someone's holding by the tail, because this show has been forming for the last 2 weeks, and it's ready to pop right now. I'm sure you can tell from our talk so far.
Oh, absolutely. And that makes me so happy to see someone excited. When you get that excited about the work that you're doing, it makes every other aspect of your life, even the ones that can be rough most of the time, can make those so easy to deal with in comparison.
Oh, you bet. It smooths it right over. But to answer your question, I think I mentioned that I started off with Abraham, and that was kind of my first introduction to the metaphysical ideas and concepts. Well, I had heard that Jerry and Esther had read stuff, and they talked about it here and there and talked about stuff on occasion. But I was meditating one day, and I had asked what I could do to increase, to increase the connection to my higher self. And I'm meditating there, and out of the blue, and you know how you know when it's the word, you know when it's the right thing that's being told to you. Well, I knew it, and what it said to me was, read the Seth books.
Oh.
Clear as a bell. And I said, okay, I don't know what they are, but okay, whatever you say, giant beard. So I bought the Seth books, and the 8 main Seth books, and I basically spent the next year to 2 years reading through them twice. And for me, that was a journey of my lifetime. I went through this process of rewiring my brain. Seth gave me, and for those of you who don't know, Seth is, the author is Jane Roberts, and she wrote a series. She channeled an energy gestalt named Seth, or he wasn't named Seth. He said that's what we could call him, but he is an energy gestalt, very similar to Abraham, for those of you who are familiar with Abraham. But the Seth material that is in the dictated books, and by the way, these were dictated by Jane and her husband, Robert Butts, took down the books in shorthand, and then they made these books. The information in those is so clear, and it gives you such a perfect framework to work from for the nature of your own personal reality and the nature of physical reality, that it's given me a platform from which to then continue to explore and to move on. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, Seth is my homie. You know, Seth is, that work gave me a framework from which to move forward. And I'll tell you that the one thing that I was thinking about this today, the one thing that Seth said that has always stuck with me, and every time some doubt wants to come in, or I want to question something, Seth said, consciousness is unlimited.
And
to me, that is such a profound statement, because it means, what that means to me is that no matter what I can imagine with anything that I can imagine with my imagination is true on some level.
Oh, sure.
And so that allows me to expand in, and that really has given me a good framework from which to expand into other areas that Seth didn't go into. And I'll give you a really good example of that, and this is going to be part of the show as well. So this is a good thing. So after doing this with Seth and going through that process, sort of at the same time, I was meditating, Rob, and I asked another question. And I said, what is my origin? And I'm meditating, and I got a word. And the word was Lyra. And I said, Lyra? I don't know what that means. You know, I mean, I wrote it down, and I said, okay, I'm going to have to look this up, because the only Lyra I know is Italian currency. You know, I don't know what Lyra is. But the first thing that I Googled and went to and found is the Lyran constellation of stars.
Yeah.
And the next thing that I saw was Lisa Royal Holt's Prism of Lyra channelings, where she gives you the whole framework of our galactic origins. And so I looked at that, you know, if Abraham was my first awakening, that was my galactic awakening. It was almost like two different events, but tied in, separate but tied together, because it's all still part of me. So from Lisa Royal Holt, of course, then I discovered Bashar, and I am an administrator for the Bashar Inspiration Group on Facebook as well.
Yeah, also another great group.
Yeah, it really is. And so I had this galactic awakening, and I've had some really wild contact experiences. Really great, amazing, incredible galactic experiences. And by the way, I want to mention, I'm so excited about Jay Carlos coming on and doing his show. I love that their Facebook group, the Yael Civilization. The people there, Vashta and Awaken Within, these people are doing wonderful work. And then the hybrid children community with Sharon and Dean and Bridget, and then the whole Bashar community. This is just icing on the cake for me. It's just, oh, yay, more friends, more fun, all right. So there's going to be a lot. We really are going to cover a lot of ground because, let's face it, if consciousness is unlimited, then there is no end to the exploration that we can do. So we're going to be doing, spiritually based ideas. We're going to be doing galactic and off-world based things. We're going to be doing all kinds of different things on the show. We're going to have special guests. We're going to have guest hosts, co-hosts. We're going to have special guest channelers. And I'll be honest with you, Rob, I haven't nailed. I've got a couple of for sures that I know of that are going to come on the show, but I haven't nailed anything down yet because I'm such a nonconformist and such a I love to go by the seat of my pants. So, I really just want to get the first show under my belt and then just kind of, it's great being able to be, what's the word, limber. It's great being able to shift gears in a moment. And so once we get the show under the belt and see how things work and see how it works with Blog Talk Radio, because this is a new experience for me, then we'll start to nail down more specifics about who the guests are going to be, when they're going to be on, and the format of the show. But more or less, I'm going to treat it, conceptually, I'm going to treat it the same way as I treat the Consciousness Evolution group on Facebook, and the same way as I treat the local meetup groups, which is kind of, with the local meetup group, I come in and I talk. I'll usually have a subject that I want to talk about, to throw out there. Maybe it's a current event. Maybe it's something that I have a pretty good sense of energy movements, big energy movements. So I can kind of feel when something is forming, something is coming to the surface in this process of discovery that we're all on. And I have a pretty good track record of pinpointing those. So I'm going to take these subjects as they come into my awareness, and I'm going to bring those into the show. We're going to, we'll have some discussion about it, whether it's just me or me and a co-host, and then we'll bring in callers, of course, and then see where the callers want to go with that information. But that's going to be the kind of the basic layout of it. I just think it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a wonderful opportunity for people to interact. And we have tons of people. And by the way, I want to tell you about the meetup groups. And of course, obviously, you can tell I can really talk, Rob. But I wanted to tell you, I started these meetup groups here. And not only do I have the Consciousness Evolution meetup group, but I also have a UFO ET meetup group that meets here.
Oh,
for
wow.
people that are more in tune with that. They're more in tune with the extraterrestrial or intergalactic energy. And, really, I kind of chuckle because, to me, they're all part of the same big thing. But
yeah, absolutely.
Different people. But what I wanted to say is we bring in people from all over the place. I got people that drive down from Saginaw for the ET.
Oh, wow.
I got people that come up from Monroe and Livonia and from Clinton Township who come in for these shows. We've had, commerce all over the place. People are looking for this information. And so when we can provide it like this in this kind of format on Blog Talk Radio, oh my gosh, Rob, I can't tell you, how pleased I am for the work that you've done over the years. You put so much time and energy and effort into bringing this to the mass consciousness, and I for one so appreciate that, and I'm so excited for this next step because I just think this is just going to be an amazing ride.
Well, I appreciate it, and that's part of my passion too, to get that information out there, to do it in a way where anyone who wants it can have it. And I know that excitement's in you, and that's kind of why you got brought into that co-creation of making this network happen, because your excitement is there and because your knowledge base is huge. And one of the greatest things I've seen you do is delve into the Seth material, and it's funny because your Abraham was my Seth. When I first started getting into the spirituality in general, it was very religious based. It was spirituality church or spiritualism church that I connected to, and I learned to meditate, get into that, and then I meet Treb while I'm learning to meditate. And during the Treb, the first time I ever met him, I talked to him, and then like 2 or 3 other times afterwards, I said, "How do I know that what you're telling me is true? How do I understand this? It feels right, but how do I know?" My brain still overtook my heart back then, so I questioned everything. It was the life I had, so I had to.
Sure.
And I said, "How do I do this?" And he said, "Talk to your friend." And when I talked to my friend, there was 2 channelings that were mentioned in this UFO show. My friend is a big UFO nut. And when I talked to Scott about it, the information was only a little part, about 2 minutes long, about this channeled information. One was the Law of One, the other was Seth. Well, Law of One is what they were focusing on. Seth was only mentioned in 2 sentences.
Oh.
The guy said, second to none, or second to only the Law of One is the Seth material by Jane Roberts in the 1960s. Yeah. That's all he said about it. That stuck out more than all the description of Law of One. I jumped on it. And the first book I read was Seth Speaks. And still, to this day, my favorite book. I have a copy of it at all times. I've given 10 copies of it away to people.
That happened.
Yeah, and I hold it. That's kind of like my Bible, because of the intricacy and the clarity of the channeling. As much as I love and admire all the work that I do, and my connection to Trev is so profound and so much more meaningful than the connection to energy of Seth. The information that came from Seth is just so profound. It's so clear and so beautiful. And I don't take away anything from any other channelers, including myself, in that way, but just the information is so great. So I'm glad. That's what I enjoy. When I turn on your YouTube channel, I see that Seth's material be broken down so clearly. And, it's for the people who don't know about this that can jump on there and just understand. You break it down for people who are beginning all the way to very, very advanced and even expertise in metaphysics, and all of them can understand it so clearly. So you're putting in that same work I am with making people aware. It's a beautiful thing, and I love this whole concept of the network.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, and Seth is interesting. On the YouTube channel, what I've done is I've read these sessions, because they would do a session, and that's how they were like their chapters. So one week they would do a session, and then Rob would record it. And what I'm doing on the YouTube channel is I have playlists of the book Dreams, Evolution, and Value Fulfillment, volumes 1 and 2. I'm just about done with those 2 books, but each session is a separate YouTube video, and they're anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes long each. But what's great about it is there are people that would be loath to sit down and read a book. But this way, they can put it on their laptop or put it on their computer and go about their business and walk around and do their housework or, whatever else it is that they're doing, and they can listen to the session.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really great about it for me, and the reason I love doing that, is because, we talk about Abraham and Seth and Bashar and all of these different teachers. The Abraham energy, the Seth energy is very present with me all the time. And I don't mean Esther Hicks. I mean that energy. The Abraham energy feels like it's like a parent. Like having a parent with you all the time, a loving parent. And I feel their energy with me. I can communicate with them. And Seth really is the inspiration that comes through me when I write. A lot of the stuff that I write on the Consciousness Evolution group, a lot of the, I do some long writings, and what happens is I'll get a download about something or an idea. And many people who are doing this type of work are familiar with this, of getting a download. And it unravels like an onion, and all of a sudden, so it'll stew in me, and then all of a sudden, I'll know what I want to write. I'll know exactly what I want to write, and I'll sit down and write 3 pages without lifting my fingers from the keyboard and never have to go back and edit it, because that's that inspirational flow, and that is that Seth energy. I recognize it, and there's a personality to it. I recognize it, and that's what's flowing through me. So, people say, well, are you channeling? Well, yes and no. I mean, I'm not channeling in the traditional sense, but I'm certainly being inspired by those energies, and they are working their energy through me. And so in that way, I become a pretty good conduit of their energy, and it's very rewarding to be able to do that. But I feel very close to those energies, and I know that I believe very strongly that all of these energies are around us all the time, and it's just a matter of whether we choose to recognize and connect to them or not.
Well, sure. And when you're describing that, the first thing that came into my head is, Philip's channeling. That's exactly my first thought as you're describing how this energy works through you. So even though it's not channeling in the same way that some consider, there's all sorts of channeling, and that is channeling. You're bringing consciousness, connecting to you through you as a part of you, and it integrates higher understanding, and that higher understanding comes out. And that's channeling. In my book, I consider that the same form of channeling I do. I just had to kind of go to sleep at the wheel and let it work,
Right.
So, the other thing you said, too, about reading the books, that is so helpful, because I am the way that my cognitive learning mechanism works is the audio cognitive learning. Whenever I read, I can come through with a high comprehension level. I have a high reading level, even though my writing is horrible. If anyone's seen me type, you know exactly what I mean. But I go through, I can read, and I take it in at about 60 to 80%, depending on my focus or my interest. But when I'm able to listen to it, I feel it. I'm one of those people who senses energy, very highly empathic, very highly able to feel energy. So when I hear information, I take it in at much higher level, 90 and 100%. I don't just hear the words, I feel the energy with it. In reading, I don't have that. So for someone like myself, that is so much more useful. And in fact, one of the very oldest things that I ever did on YouTube long ago was I took an audio Seth PDF and turned it into a text file, and then put it to a talk-to-text program on a computer, so that people would be able to listen to Seth speaks.
Yeah, great.
And it was very useful, and that's how I, to this day, I still have that file in whole. It's like 11-hour file, 11-hour MP3.
Wow,
That's
cool.
how I listen to Seth. Yeah. So it's very useful and very helpful in that way. Before we jump off too, Philip, is there anything, any idea or any message that you kind of want to share with everyone about the work that you do, or about joining you on the show? Anything that you want to talk about?
I just want to let your listeners know, who don't know me, that my whole idea is, number one, to hold this energy. I try to take a broader perspective, and that's always been my thrust through much of this, is to begin to look from the broader perspective, to begin to see things from the higher levels. And when you get to that point, a lot of the 3D stuff, and I don't even like using those terms but it starts to fall away, and you realize that you can love everything, because that's what being in the fifth dimension is connecting with love. And so once you start to open your heart and realize the power that is within you, you're living in 5D. And the one thing that I am going to do is I'm going to steal an Abraham line here, I'm going to use every trick in the book, every tool at my disposal to give the listeners a sense of their own power and their own abilities to do this. You don't need anybody. You don't need Seth or Abraham or Bashar or me or a pastor or a parent or a peer. You are an amazing universe unto yourself, and you have the power within you. And I'm going to do everything I can to show you that power in yourself, which will allow you your own journey.
Amen, brother. The way you put that was perfect, beyond perfect. It's such a wonderful thing to know that you do have the power to change everything around you. And that's kind of the focus of this whole network. The name in itself says it, enlightenment. We're trying to enlighten ourselves through knowledge, through love, and it's about the evolution of ourselves and our souls going through this journey, and all of these things is going to teach you your own divinity. And I know, like you said, that word is a loaded word, but it does carry a lot of power if you put the dogma version of it away and understand that we all are creators.
You bet.
Well, that's beautiful. And Philip, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today, talking to the listeners. Everybody who wants to listen to Philip's show, tomorrow will be his very first show. If you've enjoyed what we've talked about this evening, please go show your support. And that's at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific time. You go to the Enlightenment Evolution Network page or the Enlightenment Evolution Network group, and you can look in there. I'm sure if you go to Philip Malika's page, he'll have that link on his site. You can also go to Blog Talk Radio and the recent shows. Go there. I'll be posting on my page, Facebook page as well. So go ahead and go there. And pretty soon it will be easier to find all of these shows because we are going to have a website up within the next couple of weeks. I'm hoping within the next month we'll have it up for sure, but we're trying to get it done and squeeze it in the next few weeks. But everybody, please support him. You can call in his show. You can call in my show. You can call in any show on the Enlightenment Evolution Network at area code 347-308-8788. Or if you sign up for your own Blog Talk account, you can go and call through on Skype on the links that we send you for these pages. So feel free to call in. Call Philip's show. Thank you, Philip, so much for joining us tonight. This talk has been very, very expansive, and I appreciate the time and effort you're putting into this out of your own life to help people and to hold that energy for people.
I love the talk we had tonight. In fact, we're going to have to do this again real soon.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm always available to be a guest on your show, too. If you ever want to chat, I'm here.
You bet, buddy. I love you. Have a great show tonight.
Hey, I love you, too, brother, and thanks again. Everybody, Philip, you too, brother, and everybody, Philip Malika, great guy. I've known him now for a couple of years as we met through Facebook. He followed the work with Trev Channeling, and very great guy, very great friend. I know him very well. Like I said, he doesn't live very far from me. I'm going to be going over to his groups too very soon. It's a very, very, very beautiful experience to have him on the show, and I'm going to be there listening to the show tomorrow with him. I'm going to be calling in tomorrow. So I would say if you guys enjoy the Enlightenment Evolution feel, the Enlightenment Evolution Network experience, then by all means, just come on and communicate with us. I'm going to be on hold here for 1 second, and then we're going to start picking up from the clips. So I'll be with you guys in 1 minute. All right, everybody. I just had to say bye to Philip in the proper way. Tonight, what I've got is from the Density and Dimension series, or better known as the Master Density class, we have some clips. Now, we did a pay-per-view event this January where Ardif and Trev came in and talked. George Sparakis, the former member of the Robin George Enlightenment Evolution show, was a guest. He was asking questions, as was the audience, as well as Kalina Angel. All of us were a part of this great event. And this great event is still available for those of you who wish to experience it. You can always contact me, and I can get you guys a copy of that too. But I've got clips available right at this time, and I wanted to share. Now, this comes from Ardif. Most of the people who follow Trev channeling might not follow Ardif or might not know about Ardif. So the background is, the very first time I had a chance to experience Ardif was the making of my very first book. I did this book with Jefferson Viscardi. I want to say maybe a year and a half ago. It's probably been closer, actually. It's probably been closer to 2.5 years. And Jefferson and I did this book, very great book, Benevolent Reptilian Hybrid Human with Trebor Yitney. And this was a very, very entertaining book. It was a very expansive book. It got us to get the general idea of who Trev is. It gave us a good idea of what reptilian energy of a benevolent and malevolent energy was. So he expanded on the ancient reptilians, a lot of things. And through this book, we had a chance to meet Ardif. And Ardif came through and gave me the greatest understanding of densities and dimensions that I've ever heard or ever experienced. And basically, when this information came through, it was very profound. Now, I know a lot about densities, dimensions. I've done my own experience with teaching that on the Blog Talk Radio, and I did a series called Master Density Class, and through that series, I gave a lot of basic information. Within a 2-hour teaching period, I was barely able to skim the surface. That was Master Density Class 101. It's still around on Blog Talk YouTube if you guys ever want to listen to that. So I decided, let's get a event for Trev and Ardif to come in. Now, I am going to be brutally honest here, and I don't like to say anything negative about my own experiences of channeling or anything, but when this information came through on this one event, I was slightly disappointed with the information that came through. And it wasn't because it wasn't brilliant. It was. But when I had expressed to Trev and to Ardif to share very, very intense and deep knowledge, I thought that they would say things that I wasn't aware of or things that I didn't know. But the deep and extensive knowledge that actually came through was things that I was well aware of. And at first that kind of disappointed me, and I was like, it's not as intense as I wanted. I wanted this to be a really great, huge event. Everyone that came to it loved it. Everyone learned something. The issue is I was looking at my own self, and I was looking at the information that was coming through Trev and Ardif, and I judged it because I thought it was going to be able to learn a lot more myself. I love learning just as much as you guys do. And through the channeling is a perfect opportunity for me to learn. But through this evening on the information, I did learn a few things, but I didn't learn a lot, and I was hoping I'd learn a lot. I went back and I asked Trev a couple days after, what's going on? I listened to this back. Where was that super intense information? They said the information was very expansive, very intense, but the reason you didn't perceive it as that is because you already have a very huge and great grip on this idea. And the stuff that's intense to you is going to be above what the collective was at that event. So what they were saying is basically they take a read of the energy of the group that was there, they gauge their understanding, capability of knowing knowledge and intaking the knowledge that was already out there, and they came up with that explicit direction to maintain the understanding of the larger group. And I understood that, I accepted it, and I go back and listen to it about a month after we did it, and I realized how deep and profound and intense this information was. So I was very excited to hear that, and I wanted to share a couple of clips with you tonight. I've got 3 clips. They're in between 3 to 5 minutes. So I'd like to share the first one. Now, this is Ardif introducing himself, and this is Ardif talking about incarnation cycles as a part of the density and dimension. you have to realize this density and dimension information is so expansive, so large, so huge. To talk about all of it would literally take tons and tons of different sessions to do it. Myself and George talked to him one time, and we had an hour and a half and barely cut the surface. I talked for 2 hours just about the basics and barely cut. But this jumps right in at a great level, and I think you all can appreciate it. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and play this clip.
I wish to express good evening to all of you. Now, what Trevor's requested me to share with you is about the incarnation cycle. So the way we begin is the only way one can begin with these subjects, from the very beginning. You are already aware of the creative power of the Creator, of the creation in itself, as we have shared this with all of you before. So let us start in the creative nature of one incarnation cycle. In the universe that we reside in at this time, we have decided that it is functionable to create consciousness in a fractalized way, that this is the most appropriate way for the universal setup, that the setup that we have is quite functionable in any way that we choose to experience physical existence. And physical existence is why we are all here. We are playing through this matrix of wonderful experiences as well as wonderful information. The information will flow through each individual as quickly as they allow it to. When they are mixing this with the love that they are given from the Creator, this makes quite the wonderful painting. This makes quite the wonderful experience. So I will paint my own picture of expression of wisdom and love as well. We start at the beginning of this incarnation cycle. I am through the same oversoul as the entity that you know as Treb. I am through the same oversoul as the entity you know as Rob. Both of these entities share my incarnation cycle. So let me share this story of the incarnation cycle with you. As Treb has explained that linear time is the only fashion that you are able to experience, so we will place it in a design, in a framework that is more suitable to you, in a linear fashion. It is true that the coalescence or the collation of all of the particles from rock and gas and electricity and water combine, and this makes a planetary consciousness. It makes a physical planet that is able to be walked on by all of us. So this is being made. As these are being made, more planets are being made. The stars are being made. And as this star forms in the center of all of these planets, it begins to ignite with consciousness. This is its own evolution. This in itself is its own ascensional level. This ascension takes hold of this star and ignites it into a bright, shining ball, one that's capable of giving energy and warmth. Now, the solar system consciousness will begin. Before this, it was all first density entities placing themselves in such a very excited dance of creation. It was first density entities striving to be what they are. And this is the collective consciousness of anything that it chooses to be. As Earth is formed, as Earth is growing, the star is growing. As Earth is growing, Venus is growing. As Earth is growing, Mars is growing. Each one of them having a plethora of different lives, a plethora of different existences, a plethora of first and second density entities flourishing upon all of the surfaces. And this is why this becomes such a beautiful story. Each one having its own existence. Each planetary collective is choosing to have an existence of its own making, of its own capability and its own experience that it wants to experience and choose. And the Earth has chosen a very beautiful path, one of great water, one of great life, one of flush existence. But let's not jump ahead of ourselves. Let's not jump into the way of showing each step in an individual fashion. You know the evolution of Earth. Your scientists have taught it very well. For the last 100 or more years, they have taught you how small life turns into larger, and this larger life turns into much more complex life, and much more complex life turns into even more complexities. Each individual step from the beginning of the secondary or second level consciousness, this second density consciousness, all the way to the third. And this is what your earth has experienced, but let me express what it will experience. It will experience a splitting. And in the 2012 area, your earth has already begun to split. There is a pathway of what most of you call positive and a pathway of what most of you call negative. I beg you not to see these both in this way. They are neither negative or positive. They are only different alignments of the same capacity. It is only different alignments of the same natural flow of evolution. One is going to self-love. One is going to love of all. And as they are splitting in this fourth density, each entity upon these planets are becoming more aligned with who they truly are.
All right. Now on that clip, what Art is talking about is how consciousness creates physical reality from the ground up. And if you guys want to join this conversation this evening, we've got a little bit of time left. Feel free to call in, and I will be taking callers very soon at area code 347-308-8788. So for those of you who are on hold, I will be getting to you very soon. You can call that in, and we could chat about what's being talked about tonight and or whatever you feel like talking about. As you know, this is one of the freestyle days, so there's no set topic. But since I played the clip, we're going to talk about the clip. What Art is talking about is the physical making of the solar system in general. Now, the incarnation cycle carries a lot of different avenues. When we incarnate into one system, we come in as an eighth density collective consciousness. Now, what this eighth density collective consciousness is a collective consciousness of collective consciousnesses. What it is it's one gigantic energy that manifests itself physically into a star. And as the solar system is forming, all of those eighth density entities is there, and it starts breaking itself up. Now, when it starts breaking itself up so that each individual portion can have their own experience, how we perceive it is planets being formed. Now, for those of you who know, and we'll talk about this a little deeper here later because he brings this up a little later, each planet as it grows, as the rocks come together and they compress and they make planets, each one of these is an individual consciousness. So if you can imagine a large ball of consciousness breaking up into the 8 planets that we have, there's more than 8, but let's stick with how the scientists see it for a minute, and then the sun itself. So 8 of these consciousnesses are breaking apart. But before they break up, there's still one, and that one entire consciousness is the star. So that's the center of the entire experience. The star, the 8th density entity that came to experience the cycle, will manifest as a star. Now, as it breaks up into these 8 portions, consciousness is not divided out equally to the size of each planet. So the Earth gets their own, Venus gets their own, Mars gets their own. Each individual planet has their own consciousness. Now, just as fractals in an oversoul, each one of those came for their own experience. Jupiter came to be the big guy on the block, the gravitational protector of the inside planets, as scientists would call it. It came to be the experience of the largest physical planet, and it carries tons of attributes, and you can see these attributes being talked about in astrology. What did Earth come to be? Earth came to be the heart center. It came to be the experience of love, the experience of multitudes of different kinds of life. It came to be the mecca of our solar system for consciousness in this time. There was consciousness before on Mars. There was consciousness before on Venus. And Trev explains this a lot, that Venus had very large amounts of consciousness on every planet. Just because we don't recognize something as life doesn't mean it's not there.
These consciousness manifest themselves out individually. Each one plays their part. Each one plays their role. Now, as these energies are being split up, we see the manifesting of physical things. The physical planets themselves is the first formation. That's the first density experience for every planet. They have to form rock, ice, magma, fire, all of the first density elemental concepts. Then it goes to the second density life. That's the bacteria that grows after the planets start cooling, when water starts coming down from the bombardment period. We look at the history, and he talks about this in the next clip. He says our scientists have the history of our planet fairly well. They understand how it formed, how life got here. But what they're not seeing is how consciousness is linked to that. What they're not seeing is that this evolution that they see is actually a design. And it's wonderful that Philip talked about that with synchronicity. He said it wasn't just the pile out of the Google. It was. Physically it was. But spiritually, emotionally, energetically, it was consciousness. Consciousness making a plan to live. That's the incarnation cycle. And he's just beginning in the first density talking about the true forming of the planets. Now, before I get to this next clip, I'm going to take a caller who's been there for a little bit this evening. 360 area code, which means that this is our wonderful, lovely Risha. How are you doing this evening? Oh, there you are. How are you doing, Risha? Oh, there you are. How are you doing, Risha?
Hi. Excuse me, I got to turn down my...
Yeah.
Whoa. Now, can you hear me?
Absolutely can.
Oh, good. I was listening actually both on my computer and my phone. I just want to say this is really interesting. I love three things I want to say. First, I'm really loving how the consciousness network evolution network is really taking hold, and really it's going in a spiral. Lots of energy, drawing in lots of people. It's really great, Rob. Really happy about that.
Oh, thank you.
And the second thing is it kind of bears saying, I said it once before, but I'm going to say it again. I love people with wonderful minds, and I have a pretty good mind myself, and I love the information, you know. I've listened to both of your master density classes, and I love the information. But something that I got from Ardif when he was on the last time, on the clip that you played on that show, was there was an energetic transmission that has absolutely nothing to do with the mind that was so powerful that sometimes I say, okay, I can actually let go of understanding with my mind, and I get filled in a way that my mind doesn't even understand in my heart. From especially that last the show from the clip that you just played was so powerful, and I wanted to reiterate that.
Well, thank you, Risha. I appreciate that. Like I said, for me, and I never really admitted that publicly until now, there was almost a disappointment when I heard the playback because I was so interested in learning more than what I already knew. And a lot of it was just kind of stuff that I had already learned through my connection with Trev and our private talks, because the density and dimension thing, I mean, that was just a huge interest to me. We've spent, if you put all the time together in linear time, we've spent months and months of the years that we've known each other talking about that. So I have a better understanding than the average person who walks around who's just learning about this does. So when they're sharing these profound and beautiful things, to me it didn't seem so intense. But people like yourself, people like Savita, people who were at that event who enjoyed the information just came to me within the first week. Most of them, like you came in the first evening, the first day after, and was just like, wow, this is so wonderful and beautiful. So that really did help me see
that the information was profound, and it was just my own self judging it because I was in such a hype and like, hey, I'm going to learn something new. I'm a dork that way.
I know, isn't it great? Well, and then you realize that you're walking into the place where you're already carrying this knowledge, and so many people don't have it, and so many people are going to get on fire just like you were for understanding it. So you've already got the library inside, and so you'll be spreading it, around bit by bit and gem by gem as people are going to really want to know more. And at the same time, there's this balance, I think, that must go on between the mind and the heart. And it's a great thing to work, to feel how we're changing energetically without even the mind. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
We're changing energetically, where at one point our mind probably will be secondary to something else
sure.
not even aware of.
Well, it's a beautiful point you made, and that's something that I'd forgotten that Art had brought up. So many people get wrapped up in what the mind does and how the mind creates, but the mind doesn't create anything. The mind itself, the physical human organ that we call a brain, is a lump of meat. Now, granted, it's a fantastic, wonderful, very delicate and very intricate piece of meat, but it does help us with the function of thought and memory. But that's all it is. It's a computer for the actual physical body. What comes through us is the energetic transmission from the chakra system of our heart and knowledge, and from our heart is where everything starts. So it's a beautiful point, Risha.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for reflecting it back to me. Well, and then I would go, and I don't know if you'll have time to get into this, but and I think we did talk about it on the show from where you're playing the clips. But how when we get into the third, fourth density, how we as creators were created and did create ourselves as humans from elements from all over the universes, how the Anunnaki or the higher dimensional beings manipulated our DNA. I guess my question is, when you were talking about the first density and the eighth density creators, did they talk in that about how our galactic history is? Did they talk about the creation of humanoids?
They didn't in that specific talk, but they have talked about it before. And there's a lot of beautiful concepts when it comes to that. When it comes to humanity in general and how our creation came through as a galactic, that's just another bigger part to the cycle. You see these planets breaking off into individual consciousness, but all of that is physical mechanics from another entity too. These great big clusters of stars are like another collective. They call them star factories, which is a smaller particle of the galactic consciousness. And the galactic is co-creating this, the solar system or eighth density. So the eighth, ninth, 10th density entities are all working in tandem. There's a scientific thing. It's called the Mandelbrot fractal. And when you look it up, you could see that this man invented this algorithm that's shown as a picture. And when you change one integer in this algebraic form that comes to life as a actual picture, you can zoom in on it, and it repeats itself over and over and over again. And every time you change one thing on it, that design changes throughout the entire thing. And it shows us how consciousness works. Consciousness works from the top to the bottom and from the bottom to the top. Every time one energy changes in the whole situation, every time one entity decides to create something, everything changes. And we're all being changed as a part of another entity's thought process, their creative power. So it's very interesting. And when you look at that, are you talking more specifically about the actual creation of man and how the galactic collective was playing a part of that, or were you talking about those two things separately?
Well, I was wondering how they fit in, how the actual creation of the humanoids fit in, where it fit in along the evolutionary cycle. And I know you hadn't gotten to that part because you'd only gotten up, to the second, I think, density is what you were speaking of, and then you.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say also when you were just as you were speaking about the algorithm, that's where my mind slips out because I try to keep it linear, but I do know that it's totally and completely unlimited. It literally goes on forever, and everything is possible. Hard one for my mind to grasp.
Sure. It's hard for all of us because we always see things as so much bigger than us. Even knowing what I know with the in-depth information, density, dimension, incarnation cycle, all these things are pretty complex for the human experience. Even knowing all that still blows my mind. When you say that, it makes me look. Most people don't even understand how small and how insignificant most of us feel just with our solar system. Our solar system is less than 1 grain of sand compared to the entire world full of sand. So, I mean, literally, just in our galaxy, it feels like that. When we go out, there's hundreds of trillions of galaxies in our universe, and our universe is one of many universes. And that's not including all the different dimensions on time. So we feel like we're so small and insignificant. And when we're living in that linear time fashion and linear experience, it's so difficult to place how one thing affects all of the other things and how one entity's will or desire to create something can truly affect us, hundreds of thousands of light years away. It's a beautiful concept, and I don't think our minds are meant to understand that. A lot of people get upset when I say that. They get very frustrated, very mad. What do you mean we weren't meant? We're here to learn. We are. But at the level of consciousness that we have, we just can't get that yet. And that's a beautiful segue into a clip that we have later. Ardif explains, you think that I'm great, you think I'm wonderful because I have all this knowledge. Well, I'm just one small part of a bigger thing. The only reason I can integrate into that greatness is because I see my oneness with it. And that's a beautiful, beautiful point. Once we see our oneness with us, with the universe at whole, then I think we're really going to start getting these concepts because we don't have to separate it. Right now we're separating ourselves from another planet. We're saying we're Earth, you're Mars, we're different. Well, we're not different. We're one. We can't even get past colors, religions, and physical territorial boundaries at this point as a race. Once we do, we'll see that oneness, I think, reflected much, much clearer.
Beautifully put. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Risha, too, for calling in. You're always a great caller. You always have such great questions, such great energy, and I love you very, very much, Risha. Is there anything else you want to talk about before you go for the evening?
No, I'm really up for listening to the next clip, and so you can just put me on hold, and I love you, too.
Right. Hey, all right, thank you. We'll talk to you
Bye-bye.
soon, and tell Stanley we said hello, too. All right, to the next clip, then, with Ardif.
But you think, if one planet is here and one planet is there, which one can you exist in? Which one is there? How are we not going to be able to perceive all the others who do not join us? But this is also a miscommunication. This is also a lack of understanding that all probabilities are being played simultaneously in this wonderful story. And both go into their own existence while a copy of each of you are on both. Right now, the Earths are separate. This is why you experience the juggling of positive and negative in your life. You have not decided which planet to stay on, and there is a version of you on both of them. You have not experienced the way to make sure that your own heart aligns with your mind. This is where stopping the resistance within you will find your true path. If it bothers you to be nice, then quit being nice. If it bothers you to be angry, quit being angry. The more resistance you let go of, the more path you will find, the one planet you will choose. And as Earth continues in its path, it goes down this very beautiful pathway of separating polarity, of having one and the other upon each side. And both of these are magnificent. Both of these are wonderful in the eye of the Creator, as well as the oversouls who have placed their own existence in this way to create such a beauteous, harmonious splitting. We look at the one that is considered mostly by humans to be positive. And this is where people begin to align with their hearts. They begin to align with the understanding that loving themselves is loving all, and that loving all is loving themselves. They no longer distinguish between the two. It is synonymous. It is one and the same. The next level begin to go through separation. On the other side of the split, they begin to align more with the disconnecting more, the more versions of wars, the more versions of racism, the more visions and versions of hatred. And as this split goes on, it's not a bad split. This is a very beautiful split as well. It's very difficult for entities who live in polarity to see a non-judgment of these things. But this is an essential part of the evolution. It is not to be judged by us. We do not judge the path that any of you take. This unharmonious, in your eye, war-ridden world serves a purpose. It serves the fourth density, negative path, as most of you say, and the positive one is going here. You are able to go back and forth as long as you wish to experience this, but until you let go of the need to experience the other planet, you will never find which planet you truly belong, and then the collective upon that planet will never find a true and full, unfiltered pathway, and it separates more as it goes.
Well, that clip is talking. I took the clip out that talked about the second density growth. Now, we jump into growing from first density to second density, and we'll cover that really quickly. Second density is the animal experience, and it starts well before then. It starts as bacteria. All things that we see living in second density, and this experience is important. It's through the will to survive, the will to exist alone, that things become manifested on this level. It's a very important part. It's a very survival-oriented skill. As we began with bacteria, bacteria from rocks that are being shot from other places that once lived in the deep parts of our solar system, or the deep parts of exploding stars from other systems, any part where life once lived, it's brought back to these planets. When you look at history and the way that scientists think that Earth formed, you'll see that once the planets stopped colliding and joining consciousnesses, once that the planets' paths were set, we were bombarded tremendously. We have all of these asteroids and comets just smashing into Earth. You see it from the moon, and the moon isn't really a fair characteristic of that. As we all understand, the moon was not originally there, just depending on which version of history. Treb's talked about both parallel realities, one where the moon was always here, one where it was brought in. Both of those are valid. Just whatever your belief allows you to have, that's the version of the moon you get. It's a very similar moon in the way it looks. So let's go with the bombardment one, because that adds credence to the way that our beliefs are with the way life forms here. So we get all this bombardment hitting the Earth, the new Earth, the water Earth, and water starts being added. A lot of these comets have ice, and they're getting smashed, and the water's melting. And there's thousands of them that are hitting the Earth every day, all the planets every day. And the planets that are rocky, like ours, are gaining water. Venus, Mars, Mercury were lush with water. And in the water, in the electricity, in these chemical reactions of the first density, their will, and it's hard to think of a non-physical or a non-living thing to have its own will, but it does. I assure you, all consciousness has will. By the will alone of these first density entities,
wanting to expand, they create minute life. They create the first DNA. They create the first I can't remember the kind of acid that helps build life. They create this in a chemical reaction with this bacteria that's being brought through with all of these primal things that are being brought forth to Earth. It creates life, and that is their will to expand. And through the consciousness of these new bacteria, through these new RDAs, these new energy complexes, it grows into different forms of life. And it always expands that way. Bacteria has to grow into something. Minor life forces like little plants, or I can't remember the name of the very first oxygen-making organisms here. They make life. A lot of us don't understand the history of Earth truly. There was several beings that lived on this planet, not just the Atlanteans, not just the Mu continent, not just the primitive caveman, not just any of these. There was life before that. The very first dwellers on Earth lived during the time where these plants were coming in. These second to third density life forms lived. They grew and they evolved into their own entities. And there was oxygen. Oxygen chased them out of here, and the Earth continued to change. The growing of oxygen in the atmosphere chased the very first Earth dwellers out. They were one of the very first third density entities to leave their...
All right, hey. See you soon.
Yep. Bye, everybody.